Hey everybody, I'm going to do another question of the month. Um, Before I start, make sure you go onto yoganatomy.com and sign up for the newsletter. You'll get articles every month in your inbox, and you also hear about some of the great new online workshops and courses I've created. So the question comes from Wendy. There is so much controversy over should you do a twist pose if you have a herniation. I've been under the impression that it depends on where it herniated, forward, back, right, or left. But rule of thumb is no, unless it is an old herniation that is not causing pain. Also, if it is one of those depends on the degree of the twist, is the laying on your back with your knees to one side safe? Can you clarify? Very good question, Wendy. I get lots of questions about back pain and herniations. Um, I think you're always going to find controversy with topics like this because um, there isn't really a single answer to your question. And what's important is how you think about it, how you assess students, how you test things with students, how you modify things with students based on their individual needs. Now, you could have you put the word safe in here. Um, the safest thing is to not move at all. And even that it has detriment to us. So that's not a realistic one. I'm just saying. Um, Typically, herniations are going uh, back and off to one side or the other. They can go forward, they can go straight to the right or straight to the left, but typically they're sort of back and off at an angle. There's an area there where there's no additional ligamentous structure to help support the disc, so sort of a weakened area, you could say, or an area of less resistance. Perhaps that's a better way to say it. So herniations tend to go that way. Now, over the last 20 years of teaching, I've met people with disc herniations who um, are fine with twisting, um, okay with back bending, but forward bends is the killer. And I have met people, and I would say that's probably the most common. Forward bends are usually the movement or posture type that is the most problematic for people with disc herniations, but that's a generality. Um, Twisting is, I have met people who twisting is a problem. Here's the benefit is typically what's going to happen is the student is going to know what kind of movements feel right and don't feel right relative to their back problem, their herniation in this case. Um, so use them as a guide. I'm not saying that to put the responsibility onto them. Um, but it's much better to go based on their feedback and what happens. Um, and to be very specific with the other part of your question, um, if it depends on degrees of the twist, there's two things. You've got the degree of twist covered here, but you also need to consider the degree of herniation. Some herniations are very mild. Um, the other thing that you mentioned here is if it's not causing pain. Typically, if somebody has a disc herniation and they're in an acute phase of it, they're probably not going to show up to a yoga class. Um, One of the last things they will probably do. It's possible um, if you're probably meeting people somewhere after the acute phase has ended and they're sort of cooling off and heading into that sort of long-term, I need to be careful with my back phase of things. So at that point, it's typically not causing pain, but it feels like it needs to be protected and cared for in a very particular way. Um, it feels like laying on your back with your knees off to one side is sort of one of the more extreme versions of twisting. There's a lot of gravity involved in it. It could move very quickly. Whether or not it's safe, go on a case-by-case basis. I don't think it is inherently bad or wrong, but remember, you could always put a bolster alongside somebody when they go to do it, and you could have them do that and test Have them go just so far, their knees hit the bolster, they stop at some depth of twist that feels reasonable, you're checking in with them, it doesn't feel funny or odd or like it's going to cause a problem, um, and you just keep it there, and then you see how their body responds in the next 24 to 48 hours. If that was fine, you move the bolster further away so that it bumps in further up their thigh towards their knee, and see how it goes. There's certainly good reasons to do twisting if part of the problem um, is as a result of tight muscles that are compressing, in a sense, the bones together and adding to the compressionary forces that are put onto the disc itself by stretching them and bringing fluid in there, and all of the good things that happen from moving. Um, the twist might be quite a benefit to those tissues, and secondarily then to the amount of pressure that's on the disc. The question is whether the disc is already compromised as a result of the herniation. You're not necessarily going to fix that herniation or that weakened area. What you're just trying to do is keep that area as healthy as you can, and the tissues that we impact the most, of course, are the muscular tissues. So from that perspective, twisting, moving is a good thing. Again, take it on a case-by-case basis. All right, Wendy, I hope that helped.